Welcome back to Retrieving Sanity, a podcast where we dive into the depths of mental health one laugh at a time. I'm your host, Keegan, and I'm here to talk about everything from anxiety and depression to self-care and finding joy in the everyday. Because, let's face it, life can suck, but we don't have to navigate it alone. Retrieving Sanity is a partner with Podcast for Prevention, an initiative from Start Day 1 that aims to prevent suicide and promote mental health awareness. Together, we're working to break the stigma and create a more supportive community. So, grab a cup of coffee, sit back, relax, and let's retrieve our sanity together. Hello, and welcome back to Retrieving Sanity with your podcast host, Keegan, and this is your podcast for all mental health, addiction, recovery issues, and topics. And today we have a very special guest, and her name is Jessi Hartnett. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. It's always a pleasure to have someone new on, and especially someone that's in recovery themselves. But why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Where are you from? How old are you? What kind of recovery are you in? And just, I also know that you're an author and you've got a book. So you want to tell us about that a little bit too?
Sure. So
All right.
I'm think of myself first as a wife and mother. I am also a small business owner, and I live in Albuquerque, New Mexico. But I've been all around the country, hopped around. So I'm hoping to land here for a while. And I've been through a little bit of a rocky road in my life, but I think it was all worth it to get to where I'm at now. So I started smoking pretty young. I was 13 and kind of just picked it up. I had always grown up around smoking, seeing adults smoke, and kind of struggled to fit in when I was young. So I started hanging out with an older crowd, and they all smoked. So it was kind of natural for me to try it out and pick it up. And I fell in really deep. I was hooked on it within weeks. And then someone that I cared about suggested to me, they're like, oh no, smoking cigarettes is so terrible for you. Don't do that. Smoke weed instead. And I tried weed and ended up getting hooked on that too. So I smoked both for many years, all through high school, into college, and picked up drinking when I went to college as well. And just was kind of always the person that did too much, never was able to really moderate well. And so that kind of was holding me back in a lot of ways. It looked outwardly like I was being successful, doing well in school, and showing up for jobs and holding it together, but inside was really struggling, especially with negative self-talk and a little bit of depression, I think. So it was just kind of a hard time for me, but I was able to get out eventually in my late 20s, where I started to learn how to connect with myself, regulate my emotions, and start to take care of myself, because I just had no clue most of my life. And so I'm very fortunate that I was able to have people around me that cared about me and kind of modeled that love for me, so that I learned to love myself. And now I'm blessed with a family and living my best life, and I'm so thankful for everything that got me here. And I did write a guide to stop smoking, because I wanted to share my experience, what worked for me, because it took me so long. I must have tried to quit 1,000 times. I smoked for 15 years and was trying to quit probably 12 of that, So just wanted to share some really radical ideas that changed the way I felt about myself and the way I saw the world, and helped me work through the internal struggles that I had going on. So that's me in a nutshell.
Wow. That is quite the nutshell. And I mean, it sounds like you fell into the trap that is nicotine, it is highly addictive, and I probably fell in the same trap, to be honest. And they say alcohol or weed is the gateway drug to different things. I think it's really just curiosity of a sorts.
Yeah.
Because for me, that's what it was. For me, I started off like, well, I wonder what it's like. What really got you into the mindset to even try it in the first place?
So I don't know if you started young. I know that a lot of smokers start pretty young, around that same age, that time when you're going through, puberty, and you're trying to figure out your new identity. You're leaving childhood, you're going into adulthood. And traditionally, this time was marked by some kind of initiation, where you go through a struggle, you kind of tear away the identity, the ego, you see what's underneath, and you come out belonging to a community. And so I can see, looking back now, that me trying smoking was me looking for initiation.
Ooh, that's good. I've not heard of someone referring to that as an initiation of sorts, because it really is an initiation of sorts.
It's a false one, but it seems like it, and I feel like initiation is kind of, especially at that time, we have initiations throughout our life, of course. There's different phases we go in. But that one out of childhood, it's like kind of like part of you needs to die. That child kind of needs to die so that you can become someone new. And so I think that kind of playing with death, with smoking, with drinking, with partying, kind of takes that place. And initiations, they're supposed to be uncomfortable. They're supposed to be painful. And I know everyone that tries smoking for the first time, it's awful. It's awful. And you push through it because you want to belong and you want to gain that acceptance and you want to learn something about yourself and prove something to yourself and those, that you're trying to impress and, connect with. So, it really makes a lot of sense to me why people start young.
Yeah, I did start fairly young myself, and you have a really good point about the initiation. It does have to be painful. It does have to be, you have to lose something because community of sorts takes its place.
Right.
And it's so strange that we kind of pick that up without even being told, like, hey, we're going to do this initiation for you. It kind of have that programmed into ourselves.
Yeah, we're drawn to it. Absolutely.
That's so strange. I never really thought about that because a lot of people do start when they're young, and a lot of people do look up to the people that are their role models, and they're usually the ones that are smoking or doing bad behaviors. And so that kind of comes up with the argument of nature versus nurture, though. Are you familiar with that argument?
Yes.
So where do you think you fell into that?
I can't pick a side.
You can't pick a side?
I think that it's probably more like, I think that we're born into this world with these like universal truths, these really mythic ideas where we have to be wounded. It just has to happen to every person. It's part of being human. And so I would call that nature. But the nurture part, I think that I got lost for a long time in this sense of identity, especially with smoking and partying, that this is who I am and I was born to do this and, coming from my family background and things like that. And it's not really true. I think that that's this kind of shell that we put on and that we can change it. And once I realized that I could change it, that I wasn't destined to be a smoker forever, that I wasn't just a bad person or a weak person, that these were kind of just personality that I had kind of fallen into, then it was easier for me to make change. Because I think when people are like, this is in my genes and I have to do this, it's really hard to get out. It's depressing, it's self-defeating. And so I like that, having that power of choice and just like, hey, these were my circumstances. I didn't choose them, but I can choose how I treat myself and what I want in life and being my authentic self and, tuning out all the stuff that is actually hurting me. So it's a little bit of both, I guess.
And that's a really interesting take on it because I think it is nature and nurture, whenever it comes to addiction or traumas and the resulting effects of. And real quick, do you dive into any of this stuff in your book?
I do. Yeah. I try to go very deep with it. It's not like a memoir or, like a list of tips or hacks or things like that. It's doing the soul work. And it's hard. It's hard stuff to do, but that's what finally helped me quit for good. Because before then, my beliefs I had kept me coming back over and over and over again. I just had to really pay attention. I was so distracted that I didn't even know the things I was thinking. I was just going through life being like, this is the world and this is the way it has to be. And so I had to really pay attention and be open to see maybe there's a different way to look at this, and I can get more joy and peace out of life than, walking down this road. So that was
Yeah,
a
for
pivotal
sure.
point for me.
Awesome. And I know that you said pivot point, but whenever I think pivot point, there's two pivot, maybe three, maybe four pivot points, whenever it comes to addiction and the cycle of it. Because, like you said earlier, you try to quit for like 12 years. And I know for myself, trying to quit nicotine and literally anything, I swear it's going to be my last one, and then it's definitely not the last one.
Yeah.
Until
One
it
more
is.
once. Yeah.
Yeah, one more once. One more last hurrah, But it's that pivot point was the first one, curiosity, was, I'm going to go ahead and take that choice. And then that second pivot point is, I'm going to take the choice to get out of it. So I refer to addiction as the disease of choice. It's a paradox because start with the choice, and then we lose the choice, and then we got to make the choice to get out of it. But we lose it along the way. So what was your pivot point of getting back out of it?
Yeah, I like what you said there, because a lot of people, kind of, I don't want to, whatever works for you is perfect, but kind of this like 12-step mindset where it's like you hit this rock bottom, and that can be like really damaging because you don't really have to hit rock bottom first off. And
No.
that's not really how it works for most people. Definitely not the way it worked for me. It was like a lot of little steps along the way. And I thought that all that time I was so harsh on myself. I had a lot of negative self-talk and criticism for myself. And I was able to clearly link that with cravings to smoke. And that was, huge game changer for me. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, wow, maybe I can just be nicer to myself and this will be easier. But I felt like every time I went back to smoking, I would quit. And then, sometimes I was doing really well. I would go weeks, months, but those limiting beliefs that I had would keep me coming back. The nicotine is long gone at that point. It's a mindset.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so I would come back and feel like a failure and just be so harsh on myself and be like, man, I don't deserve this. I'm not good enough. All these horrible, horrible thoughts. And then, but now looking back, I'm like, all that was practice. I had to practice. And that helped me. I learned so much every time I did that. And so it wasn't just like this one point, like I'm done and that's that. I mean, eventually I did get there, but it took a lot of practice. So I like what you said about there being many points. Because every time you go back too, it's a great opportunity because you can start to test those beliefs. Like, okay, I really want to smoke because I feel so stressed out. So if I smoke, then my stress will go away. Everything will be great. And then you smoke and you're like, wait, I'm still stressed out. It didn't work. You feel that disappointment, and that regret can actually kind of help you if it's, not just shame and, doubting yourself, if you use it to learn and grow. And
Yeah.
so, but I think I did hit a point where I was just like, man, this has to be done. I'd always kind of playing this like little cocktail game where it's like, oh, like I said, I even started off that way where it's like, I'll smoke weed and I won't smoke cigarettes, and
Yep.
oh, I'll just drink more. I'll only smoke when I drink. And I like made all these little rules and loopholes, just using my mind to try to rationalize my way. And it got to a point where I just had to quit drinking, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to quit everything. Just quit everything together. Just go through hell here. Let's do this. And
That's rough.
I made it through. I had so much support. It was really, I really felt like my relationship was like going to make or break it. That's what it was about. And it's like, I have to make a choice here. And either I'm going to keep going on the path, the selfish path, or I'm going to go through the hard things so that I can gain love and hold on to that because it's precious. And so that helped me model the love for myself, like I said, because I didn't know how. And so I was kind of able to use that as a starting point and learn how to love myself. And it's definitely benefited my relationship. It's hard to be in a relationship if you don't love yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you just said a whole lot in there that I would love to unpack, like all of that. But there's so much that I got to really just say thank you for just being open and vulnerable about all of this, because it is hard to overcome addictions.
Oh yeah.
And uh, I only do little chuckles because I relate so hard to everything because that little cocktail of, well, for me, it was like, I'm going to go from liquor to malt liquor. And then
Mhm.
from that to, I'm going to drink only this after work or this after. So you name it, any kind of combination of literally anything, and I've tried it. So, one of the things I want to highlight though is that you were mentioning the rock bottom aspect. And I love that you didn't necessarily have to hit a rock bottom. You were able to sit there and see, hey, if I keep going down this way,
Mhm.
nothing good is going to happen. And a lot of people see that and they can't stop themselves, but you were able to catch yourself, which, and you were able to catch it through self-talk, right?
Yeah.
And that is huge because that is one of the things that a lot of us addicts deal with, you know, and it's that, man, I thought about using, or I thought about drinking, I thought about smoking. That's a bad thought. I'm a bad person, you know?
Yeah. You take it
That's
in.
not, yeah, that's not the case. It's normal to have those cravings again whenever you're trying to get off of it, you know? Um, but whenever your self talk changed, what was the first thing that you noticed change with it?
Yeah. Well, I want to talk first about what you just said too with the
Okay.
cravings. When you
Uh
have
huh.
that craving, that's a
Mm
clue to me now. I still have
hmm.
them very rarely, but I will
Mm
still
hmm.
have them. And when I have them, I'm like, oh, I'm avoiding something.
Mm hmm. Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is an
Yeah. Yeah.
emotional need that I'm avoiding right now, and
Yep.
that's what I'm trying to do. So it's actually a great clue to get in touch with yourself. Like,
Mm
I
hmm.
need something right now. I need to rest. I need to, journal. I need to say nice things to myself. I
Mm
need to
hmm.
take a break. Whatever it is.
Yep.
So it's not it doesn't make you a bad person. It's just a communication
Yeah.
with your
Yeah.
body. So and
Thank
then
you for
so
pointing that out.
yeah, because that really helps me now. It's instead of like going down this road where it's like, oh no, I'm a loser and I need to do this
Mm
or
hmm.
I need to fight this. It's just like, no, what is this telling me about myself? So that's what you start. You use the thoughts as clues and try
Mm
to remove judgment. And it's easier said
hmm.
than done, but
Oh,
just
yeah.
kind of like pull back and be like, okay, is this true? Just like
Mm
being more open-minded because, like I said, it's so easy to get caught into our own limited view of the world, and
hmm.
it's
Mm
kind
hmm.
of miserable because I mean, our mind does this for a reason. It's very natural, but we kind of only see what we believe. So we can
Mm
miss out on all these really wonderful, cool, new things. But if we're
hmm.
cut off from it, if we tell ourselves every day, nobody likes me, it's going to look like nobody likes you
Yeah.
and that you're not worthy and that you're not lovable. And so, yeah, I just started to be like, first off, notice because I was just rushing through life and using
Mm hmm.
distraction. And anytime I started to realize, it took a long time to realize this, but I started to realize that anytime I had an unwanted feeling was when I had a craving.
Uh,
And I was using the smoking to just kind of numb out or
mm
distract or
hmm.
not pay attention to that and kind of like manifested, I guess, like the
Mm hmm.
self-abuse that I was going through in my head. I would kind of need to play that out. And so that
Uh,
I was seeing that connection.
mm hmm.
And so what really helped me once I noticed it and then I started questioning it, like maybe this isn't true.
Mm hmm.
Because other people don't talk to me this way and I don't talk to other people this way. So maybe this doesn't have to be a thing. And
Mm
so
hmm.
I started using affirmations as like
Ooh.
critical for me.
Uh
And
huh.
they feel weird. They feel so weird in the
They do.
beginning. Yeah.
Uh huh.
But it really, really works if you stick with it, if you believe it, if you're just open. Like maybe I don't
Mm-hmm.
love myself right now, but I want to. And
Yeah.
you come every day with that intention. You look at yourself in the mirror and you say, I love you. And you start to
Mm-hmm.
open yourself to it and kind of drill it into you. Because if you think about it, like a lot of our thoughts are just programming. They're things that we
Mm-hmm.
beat ourselves with every day, these repetitive thoughts over and over and over again. So if
Mm-hmm.
you could choose which thoughts you want and you see the results show up just
Mm-hmm.
by believing it and trying it, and it really does work. So affirmations was like critical for me. And then I was able to kind of just redirect those thoughts when I have them. You know, like I said, I still go through these things. It's not like you're healed and you're done. So I can notice these thoughts now, and I just try to redirect them with the affirmation, or like I said, really tap into what I'm needing here.
Yeah, and affirmations are one of my favorite tools because they work so well, and I can shape them to whatever I need them to be.
Yeah.
But
Those are the most powerful ones. When you come up with it, it's hard to borrow other people's. It has to be what you need.
Yeah, exactly. Because, and like, that's how you figure it out too. You get those cravings, and then you figure out, well, what is it? And then you address it, right? But whenever it comes to my self-talk, I know that it was really, really hard to get rid of blaming other people for outside stuff.
Yeah, I can relate to that.
It took a lot to say, well, this happened, so this is how I feel, but this is how I'm going to respond in kind, instead of reacting and reaching for a substance or whatever. And nicotine also has been shown to help treat ADHD. I don't know if you know this. And so they're actually making medicines for ADHD from nicotine, but the problem is, as soon as they take away the addictive part, it stops working. So a lot of people self-medicate with nicotine without knowing it. And so that self-talk actually helped reprogram some of my patterns on the inside of my thinking, because then my ADHD can kind of not necessarily slow down, but I can kind of get a little grip on it, because that communication with those cravings, it all feeds back into getting centered and finding myself a little bit more, So self-talk is one of those tools that I use on a daily basis, but one of the ways that I'll do them is I'll use a mirror. Is that what you use?
Yeah, that's where I started. I'm always trying new things too. So I've been trying a new thing that I have a baby daughter. Well, she's growing up. She's almost 2 now. But
congratulations.
Thank you. And so I started talking to myself the way I talk to her. Like mothering myself, and that's very, very calming and soothing for me. So like you were talking about with what you're going through with ADHD, like you need to find another way to regulate that instead of an addictive substance that's hurting you. There's other options. That's really interesting what you said with that too, because it is a stimulant. And so I've always found it to increase stress for me. Well, I thought in my head, I'm like, oh, it helps me with stress. And I'm like, wait a minute, this stresses me out so much. But I guess with ADHD, the stimulants can have opposite effect, like with coffee and stuff. So that's really good to think about and take in too. So maybe for some people it is actually calming, but I think for most of us, it's our heart rate is going through the roof, and we're in fight or flight essentially. So it's not that calming for me at all. But yeah.
So it was really, whenever you would smoke, it would give you more of it would give you anxiety?
Yeah, definily. My anxiety has been so much better. I know a lot of times people go through a rough patch when they quit, for the first time, because they're getting used to having emotions and having to deal with them. Because they've been stuffing them down inside themselves so hard and for so long that it feels like the world's falling apart. But then most people get through that patch, a few months, maybe a year. But yeah, I am such a calmer, more chill person now. It's unbelievable. It's like night and day. Everyone has noticed in my life.
That's awesome.
They used to call me Stressica because I was always just puffing on my cigarettes, like freaking out. And now, I'm a lot more calm.
That's super cool. Do you do meditations or anything like that as well?
That really helped me get through the rough patch in the beginning. It was like a new thing for me, and it really helped me get in touch with my thoughts and my emotions because I had ignored them. So doing those practices, especially in a group setting where you're kind of like getting led through it, that was like one of the big moments for me was that we did a meditation with loving kindness, and it's you send loving kindness to people that are easy to love, and then you send loving kindness to people that are kind of tough to love, you know, get on your nerves, but like go ahead, send them some love, like just try it. And I was like, okay, I can do this. And then it's send love to yourself, and I got so angry. I was furious. I was like, are you kidding me? I'm not worthy of love. You know, like I'm a piece of crap here. Like, what are you talking about? And then that's when it hit me. It's like, this is a major issue. Like, I can't even say, you know, send myself love. Like, something's wrong here. So meditation kind of opened me up to that and introduced affirmations. So I'm very grateful for that time and all those things. But I honestly cannot keep up with them now as a mother. Like, I don't have time to meditate for a half hour or, you know, I'm lucky if I can get a few minutes. And
for
so
sure.
I've kind of changed my perspective of that with meditating. It doesn't have to be this big thing where you sit down and you know, no stimulation. I kind of just take moments when I feel myself like getting dysregulated, like I'm gonna like overreact to something and make a fool of myself with my daughter. I just like put my hand on my heart, I breathe, and I center myself. Just take a moment. I take that moment to reconnect with myself, reassure myself, like I said, like I've been doing that mothering. It's all gonna be okay. We're gonna get through this. You're learning. You know, so all this kind of like very soft patience, gentleness, and it really helps calm me down like very quickly because that's emotions. I guess they're only supposed to last very briefly in the body, and I think that a reason we hold on to them so much is because we fight them, we resist them.
We do.
And so coming into acceptance of emotions was really, really helpful to me. I realized that having sadness, having anger, these aren't bad things. Like I learned that very small. A lot of us do. We need to not show that in order to get love, to get acceptance. But they're part of being human, and having a baby has taught me that. Like these babies come out, they're angry. They're sad and they're happy, and it's all temporary and natural and very easy to go through. It doesn't have to be this big battle with yourself. And so accepting those parts of myself was very, very difficult. But now that I respect my emotions, I allow them to happen, they last much less. It's kind of a weird thing where you just kind of let it come through you. It's called emotion. It's got motion. Just let it come, let it go. And that's been really, really helpful to me to not have to, you know, harbor those kind of things and want to hurt myself because of that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that little, it's emotion, so it's got motion, just let it flow. Because, yeah, that was one of those things that I had a hard time learning was that I'm not supposed to hold on to them. And it's still something that I'm guilty of here and there. But you're entirely right. We're not supposed to hold on to emotions. They're supposed to inform us, say, hey, this is what's going on. Okay, bye. You know? But we treat them like they're the best friends that are supposed to hang around forever. And I treated the ones that were bad like the bestest of friends. Like, I never wanted those bad feelings to go away.
We can kind of get addicted to them. You know, get in that negative zone, and it's like, oh, everything's against me, and I kind of like having this chip on my shoulder, and you know, take it on into an identity, and it doesn't really need to be like that. We all have the entire spectrum available to us, and it's just part of life.
Yeah. Yeah, having a chip on my shoulder. Oh, those were the days. Still the days. What am I talking about?
Yeah.
But that's the thing is that those negative emotions, negative, aren't necessarily negative. It's what I choose to do with them, you know. And it's not so much that whenever I'm feeling angry that I'm going to punch a hole in the wall. Like that is a negative response, whether punching a hole in the wall or picking up a bottle. Both of those are negative responses. There are different ways to handle an angry response. I can sit there, I can put my hand over my heart, take a breath, and take a step back and just go, Goose Fraba, and that can sit there and calm me down. And if it doesn't, I can go do something else. But
Hmm.
that's the thing is that I had programmed myself into those responses. Uh, and so different things set them off. So for me, I have different triggers that I have to address, and my triggers are my responsibility. Whether someone does something and it triggers me, I can't tell that person, "Hey, don't do that," because that makes me upset. Like, whenever I go around people that smoke, I can't sit there and tell them, "Hey, can you put that out?"
Right.
Because that offends me. I'm an ex-smoker. They're just going to laugh at me, right? And they're going to say, "Hey, I was too." um, but I mean, that's kind of the thing is that whenever it comes to triggers, I have to handle them. And they're just like emotions. They're going to come, they're going to go. I don't get to say when they come about. So, how do you handle triggers? Do you still have triggers? I guess is the first question.
Yeah, I do have them when I'm very stressed out and when I feel
Mm,
overwhelmed.
mm,
I'll still have the thought like, oh, now is when I would smoke because just so many years of doing that, it's it it's difficult to change, especially
yeah.
overnight. So it takes a long time, and it happens very rarely now compared to like when it used to. Like that first year, it's just like, who am I? What do I do? It's kind
Mm-hmm.
of you feel like a newborn. You got to relearn all these skills. But yeah, I have certain things that I've told myself that I just go back to now that it's like a knee jerk reaction. So I have
Mm-hmm.
the craving to smoke, and then the next thought is immediately smoking doesn't help.
Mm,
So
yeah.
I've like drilled myself into that. Every time I had that craving to smoke, that's what I would say, and that just comes naturally immediately. And I'm like, oh, okay, then I won't do that. So
Yeah.
it's just kind of convincing yourself, and it's not even like you're brainwashing yourself into something false. You're brainwashing yourself into something true,
Yeah.
like it's you've gotten lost on reality when you're in addiction. You see
Mm-hmm.
it as having some benefit, but like I said, all those
Mm-hmm.
times of relapsing, going back, I know that it's not true, that it won't
Mm-hmm.
fix the problems, it won't help me have more control or the things that I used to turn to it for. And so just
Mm-hmm.
knowing that helps me just get through it. And they're so brief, it's maybe that
Mm-hmm.
quick. I have the craving, I have that thought, I'm done.
Yep.
So yeah.
That's awesome. Um, and you have that thought process of playing the tape out. Uh, for me, it can get a little bit more advanced, but it was earlier recovery that was really difficult that I'd have to
Yes.
sit there and go, okay, well, if I do this, then this is going to happen, then this is going to happen, then this is going to happen, then this is going to happen. And I don't want that. Even though it's further down the road, I didn't want it. And so that was the thing is that I'm always looking for that instant satisfaction. Want that. I want that something that'll get me fixed right now. But there's no such thing except for the things that I'm trying to get away from. You know.
Yeah, and then just changing the beliefs. It won't fix it right
Mm.
now. That's what I had to change that belief because I would do that too.
Yeah.
Of course, you want to feel better.
Mm.
That's natural. Doesn't make you weak or weird
Mm.
or abnormal or anything like that. But you just have to really question that. And when you get an addiction, you get caught in that cycle where you think it's doing it for
Mm.
you, but it's when you look at the reality, it's not. If anybody outside is saying no, that's not doing that
Mhm.
for you. That doesn't make life better for you.
Yep.
So yeah, you just kind of have to change that belief that it's gonna make you feel better right now
Mhm.
because it doesn't.
Yeah.
So
And uh whenever we look at the issues that were causing us uh, to go to whatever substance it may be. Some of them may be chronic issues that we've been dealing with forever, and we have to really dig deep to the root. And some of them are more superficial that once we address them, it's still a root, but it's not like a giant tree. It's more like a milkweed, you
right.
know. So what were your roots kind of like?
Well, just starting with the shallow one.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I had a lot of anxiety when I was smoking, and
Mm-hmm.
anytime I had that kind of feeling, I would reach for a cigarette. But
Mm-hmm.
then when I was quitting, I needed to replace that response, so you retrain myself. And so I
Mm-hmm.
was like, okay, I'll just drink water. Anytime I want to smoke,
Oh.
I'll drink water instead. And I would say something like, I'm taking care of myself. I take care of myself. So that's a
Mhm.
response when I have, that kind of anxious feeling or anything like that, or to actually take care of myself, to use that as a clue to, hey, I need something here. And water was a game changer for me. I was so dehydrated when I was smoking, and my anxiety, like I said, has just gone down. I think I was just dehydrated.
Yeah.
So the cigarette wasn't meeting the need, but water does. So that's one of those shallow things that I was able to just knock out easily. And then, some of the deeper stuff, it can be so, so hard. Like, sharing my most vulnerable part of me. I have a pretty bad abandonment wound. And so I had to I still work through it all the time. I go there and I face that pain that I felt very young, and kind of took into my personality and my understanding of myself, and just kind of had to like hype myself up and be like, hey, I am worthy. I am lovable. I have something to offer. And it helps me. I know this is kind of, it might seem dismissive, and there's a time and place for it, but it helps me to feel like that I chose my life for a reason. Like, I came here and I wanted to learn something, and the experiences I went through were meaningful and helped me become who I am today, have wisdom. There's a cost to wisdom, and it's pain. And I wouldn't have been able to grow into the person I am if I hadn't been through the hardships. And I'm grateful for them now. Yeah. And in a way, sometimes I do, feel a little like a victim. I'm a little boohoo for me. It still happens. And I talk myself out of it, because it's not a good place for me to be, because I actually like myself now, and I like where I am, and I could only get here through living my life. So and you can't go back and change it. It's just a futile exercise. Well, it should have been this way, and it should have been that way. And how is that helping you in any way? You can't change it. So it's the acceptance, I guess, is critical for me, is accepting this is what happened to me. This is the cards I was dealt, and I can make choices now and choose who I want to be now. And I like to have more future forward thinking, but not too much, because then you can overplan and have that anxiety and be like that. But just like, get out of my past. That was the hardest thing for me. Just, where am I right now? I'm not back there. You kind of get stuck in that trauma, either where you just relive it every day and you're right back there. And I don't like push it down or hide from it anymore, but I just bring myself to the present, and because I've made a life for myself that I really enjoy. So
that's awesome. It sounds like you use a lot of gratitude in there too.
Yes.
And gratitude is a huge deal for me, because if I wasn't grateful for what I have now, then why would I have done what I did? And so it kind of keeps me going, and I'm so glad that you use gratitude. I'm so glad that you even mentioned acceptance, because it's not just acceptance of maybe I have an issue somewhere. It's acceptance of what's happened to me. It's acceptance of where I'm at. It's acceptance of almost literally anything and everything that could be contributing to that factor.
And responsibility. Accepting that you have choice and power.
Yeah.
Which is, it's kind of easier to blame people sometimes,
Yeah. Yeah, it's always easier to blame someone else.
Yeah.
Because if that guy didn't park in that parking spot, then I could have had that parking spot, and I would have been a lot closer, and then therefore, so on and so forth. I can blame anyone for anything, and somehow make it not my fault, even though I'm the one that maybe did something.
Then you don't have to fix it if it's not your fault. You can just keep doing what you're doing, and that, the addiction. And I think that gratitude is really a gift from addiction, especially when you move out of it. Because it sounds kind of silly, but it's really kind of crazy. You come to appreciate the small things, like, wow, I'm not completely incapacitated. I can just like handle my life, and I can breathe, and all these things that you kind of lose from addiction, and when you regain them, it's just so satisfying. It really helps you appreciate what you have and be more willing to protect it, and advocate for yourself. So I see that as a gift from addiction, because I used to have a lot of regret. Once you come out, it can be hard, because you're like, you realize what you've missed out on, and it feels hard. It's like I wasted all that time, all that potential. I could have been so much farther than I am in my spiritual journey and my understanding of myself, but it actually is a gift, because it was like we were talking about the initiation. Sometimes you just have to go through a struggle to transform, to grow, to become something. It's just part of the process. Like, like a butterfly, it's like, it's in the cocoon and it's got to like wriggle its way out and fight its way out. And that's how it becomes something new. It's part of transformation process. You have to go through a struggle, a hardship to become something amazing and become who you are, essentially. That's what I was saying with the wounds too. We all have to be wounded. It's part of life, because it's our lesson to learn to reconnect to ourselves. And so, I don't know, just kind of seeing that helps me. I am trying to work through, I think I might have like a little bit too much like German outlook from my heritage, where it's just like hard work is valuable. And if it's not hard, then it's not worth it. And I'm seeing that show up in my life again and again. I'm like, maybe I could like just let things be easy sometimes, So I am kind of, you can go too far with it, is where I'm saying. Like, but I don't know. I just appreciate the struggles I've been through, because I learned so much from them.
Yeah. And that's good. It's good to go through struggles. And I'm glad that you brought up the butterfly in the cocoon, or chrysalis, because it's, whenever it's actually in there, it actually turns into a goo. And then it recombobulates itself into the butterfly.
Yeah, it's like nothing. They call them imaginal cells. Like, it doesn't even know what it's going to be, which is like coming out of addiction. You don't know what you're going to be. It's scary. It's weird. You're stuck in between two worlds, who you were and who you're becoming. So I think it's a really good metaphor.
Yeah, it's great. And the thing is that it remembers being the caterpillar. It remembers going through the process, and then it remembers coming out. And so it's the perfect thing for going through addiction, because, or maybe even self-awareness, self-reflection, and healing and growth, because it doesn't have to be addiction that we're coming out of and healing from. But that, what was it? My upstairs neighbors are trying to have a party or something. Sorry.
I can't hear them. We're good.
Okay, you can't? Good.
No.
That was a little concerning. I haven't heard them be that loud before. Well, geez. My train of thought just left with that one.
All good.
Butterflies. What was it? Butterflies. What was the part you were talking about right after? Gratitude. I know what it was. And it's easy to fall into the mindset of, if it's not difficult, if it's not hard, it's not worth it. Because that's what so many of us were raised with. That if I'm not if I'm not fighting hard, if I'm not having a hard time at work, I'm not making enough money, I'm not doing enough, blah, 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 blah. That's why in Japan, even, they're like, if you take a nap at work, you are working so hard.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I'm glad I don't have to take a nap at work to prove that I'm working hard. But it's that mindset of, I've got to push myself to prove myself to myself. And I don't have to do that.
Yeah. It's hard to accept that we can just be, that we're don't have to earn our worth. We are born with worth, and every person just inherently has worth. And I've been trying to prove that. Like you said, I like that part, what you said, to myself. It's not even, I think I've worked through the external validation bit, where it's like I'm living my life for other people, but like it's my own self-image that I just need to chill out, like just let myself rest. There's always more to go with this stuff too. It's like, I'm so proud that I made it through addiction, and it really helps me to look how far I've come. Thank you. You too. But there's always more to go. You can always go deeper and deeper and deeper. And that's actually exciting. Like, I used to think that was like overwhelming or daunting. Like, oh, I have so much left, and kind of like racing to the end here. And it's like, then you're dead.
Yeah.
Or you're perfect. And that's so boring. That's death, you know? Like, who wants to be perfect? Like, part of life is having the excitement, the
Yeah.
adventure.
Yeah. And death isn't even perfect nowadays, you know? So,
Yeah.
because, I mean, we can bring people back here and there. And
Oh, right.
so it's not, unfortunately, not perfect anymore until the final one, until we can't bring them back. But that's the thing with addiction is that, or rather the self-growth, the healing, we're never really done, because they say that traumas can be induced as young as while you're in the womb, you know.
Yeah.
And there's
That's me.
yeah, and there's intergenerational traumas. So just because someone was afflicted with a trauma at one point doesn't mean that their grandkids aren't going to feel that in some way, shape, or form, because our DNA holds memories.
Right.
So there's a whole bunch of stuff that, even though we didn't have a say so in what happened to us, we have a say so in how we're going to respond to it, and how we're going to heal. But a lot of it was fear of addressing it in the first place. You
Yeah.
know, that's why it was so daunting. It was like, no, I've looked at it before and I didn't like it, so I'm just going to go this way.
Yep. And getting discouraged from other people, too. We're not supposed to talk about that.
Just a second. Just a second. I knocked out my headphones. There we go.
There you go.
Sorry.
All good.
What were you saying?
Oh, just that a lot of it can be like discouraging from other people too. Like we don't talk about that. So it can be
Yeah.
hard to go there when everyone's telling you not to. It's like the hardest thing ever to be yourself. Like
It
nobody
is.
wants that for you but you.
No. Yeah, because everyone has a different version of me in their own head. And they want me to live up to that expectation. So they don't want me to be me. Some people do, but those are few and far between, right? And what is it, Dr. Seuss, that says, those who mind don't matter and those who matter don't mind? So it's really quite the truth, because if people are going to judge me for me, they're not someone that I need in my life.
Absolutely.
Because they're going to just add unnecessary stress, which is going to possibly turn me back in relapse, and I don't want that. So,
yeah, that was part of my journey too. I've heard it called in somewhere, like I think Buddhism or somewhere along the lines, where they call it cleaning house. You got to clean house, and sometimes that means letting relationships go. That you know, it became really clear to me too, because I was still able to have friends that smoked, and you know, it's totally fine. Like that's their choice, that's their lives. Like I don't care. I thought that our friendship was about the smoking, but it wasn't. It was so much deeper than that. So they can continue to smoke, but then there was also relationships that I'm like, man, we have nothing in common other than smoking, and that's time to let go. Like I'm not gonna, if that's all the relationships are based around, it's not gonna last.
Yeah,
So.
and that's one of the things too, is that a lot of people try to go and help people that were back in addiction too. So for smokers, it's probably not as bad or bad,
Right.
because it's the same thing. If you hang around people that are smoking, you're maybe eventually going to smoke again, right? Like you hang out at a salon long enough, you'll eventually get your hair done. Or that's how the saying goes, but you always have the option to walk away from it. And that's how I chose to do with it, because I don't want to be around the stuff if I don't have to be. It's not because I'm afraid of it.
Yeah.
It's just, it doesn't serve me.
Yeah, I
So,
just lost my desire to smoke, really.
Yeah.
So
That's
it wasn't
awesome.
like they were like, oh, I want that. It's just like, no, I don't want that. So
Yeah.
it doesn't bother me to be around them, other than I get a headache. I'm like one of those people now. I'm just like, oh, it stinks. You know?
Yeah.
So
Man, every now and then I'll get that smell and my body will just be like, oh, yeah, I remember that. And then my body will also be like, and I remember the nasty part of it too. and
Yeah.
it's like,
No, ever since I got pregnant, like the smell just makes me
oh yeah.
nauseated. Like I can't do it anymore. So it's a blessing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, that is awesome that you lost the craving for it, or the desire rather, because the desire is enough to keep people going back.
Yeah.
Real quick, we are nearing the end of this episode,
Right.
but I do like to ask everyone that comes on the show. One episode is not enough to dive into a story or dive into a book and whatnot. So, could we possibly see you in the future on the show?
Yeah, I'd love to come back. Thank you for
Sweet.
having me. It was a great conversation.
Of course. Yeah, it was super great. And I mean, we still got about 7 minutes left. So, I know that you have your book, Honor Your Heart. Do you want to talk about that a little bit more, or do you have
Yeah.
anything that you'd like to leave the guests with today?
Yeah. So I guess maybe we kind of already talked about it, but the kind of goal here, the thing that can be hard, because it can be hard to get into all these like really deep concepts. I guess I haven't really talked much about the heart, and so I do want to talk about that. Is that that was a huge part of my whole shift about my beliefs about myself and my view of the world and my capabilities, was to finally get out of my head. I had really become attached to like kind of scientific dogma. That's how I see it now. Is that like, if you can't see it, it's not real. If you can't measure it, it doesn't matter. And that we are all here randomly and accidentally, and we have no connection to anyone. It's all just survival of the fittest competition. And
Yeah.
that was holding me back and depressing me so much. Like I was just struggling to have any purpose or meaning in life, to get out of bed. I felt like nothing mattered, and so I could just destroy myself because it was insignificant. And I finally was able to get out of that when I realized that there's this whole other part of me, and it's in my heart. So the brain it's a tool for us to use. It's not who we are. We put on this personality. We learn these ways to fit in, to survive, to get by. But those are all conditioning and training. But there's part of us that comes into the world and just is us. It's uniquely us. It's the soul. It's in our heart. It's this amazing ability to connect to others, to connect to God, to connect to nature, and just it knows exactly what is good for us and what is bad for us, and it's called intuition. And I had been ignoring that intuition for so long. I didn't even know how to get back to it, and so it took a lot of practice. I just had to ask myself, like, how does this feel? So the brain is thinking, but the heart is feeling. And that helped me so much, because there's so much information out there nowadays on the internet. It's like complete overload. Everyone's got an opinion, and it's hard to know what to do if you're just following what people tell you. But the heart, you know exactly what you need. You know exactly what you need to do, and it's like a feeling. It's like a lightness or a heaviness, and you know which direction to go because it just feels right, or it just feels like something's off here, and I don't want to do this. And so I was able to really see that, like, cigarettes, this is off. I'm getting so many messages from my body. This is making me feel terrible about myself. The embarrassment, the shame, the lack of confidence I'm going through every day with this. And like I said, with that little silly water story, that came from my intuition. I was like, maybe I should drink some water. Like, nobody told me that. I didn't know that would be so helpful for my anxiety. But when you start to listen to that inner knowing, it's just going to boost your confidence through the roof. And you actually can learn how to take care of yourself instead of just trying to not need anything, not want to deal with anything. And so that heart just opened me up to so much. I was able to forgive myself, to have compassion for myself, to love myself, to have love, genuine love. And so that's what I write about in my book too, is how to reconnect with your heart. Because, like I said, it's a loud, busy, noisy world, and it's hard to be quiet and sit with ourselves. I realized I was avoiding myself by partying. And it's sad. It's a rough way to live life. Yeah. So I wrote my book, Honor Your Heart, and you can find it on my website, honoryourheart.net. And it's a guide for you to tap into those underlying beliefs, the commitments you've made that you might not even be aware of, that are holding you back from making change. And I just hope it can be helpful for you, because I didn't get introduced into these ideas and concepts until very late in life. And just wanted to share. I kind of wrote it for like, me 10 years ago. Like, what have I learned since then that I, could help someone that's going through the things that I went through. So
That's awesome. Well, Honor Your Heart, and you said .net, correct?
Yes.
Okay, honoryourheart.net and Honor Your Heart, the book. Can they find it on Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, stuff like that?
You can find it on Amazon, but I prefer you go to my website.
Website.
Yes,
Gotcha.
that's where you want to buy it.
Okay, so honoryourheart.net, y'all heard it here first. And don't forget, everyone, to support, to show some love. Do you have any other websites or anything else that you'd like to plug in while you're at it?
I've recently started a membership. That's pretty exciting. I feel like a lot of people, they're looking for more than just a book. They want to have connection and support. So I'm also offering a membership where you'll be part of a community. You'll have email access to me. If you're more of a private person, you can just send me messages, and I'll be there to help you work through what you're going through. Just, we'll unravel it. Like I said, it's really hard to see outside of yourself. So sometimes it helps to talk to somebody, and they can be like, hey, have you thought about this? And, it can blow your mind. No, I didn't at all. So it can be helpful to be a part of a community.
Yep. That is awesome. Thank you for doing that, because a lot of people need community and a lot of people don't know where to look. So thank you for creating space for people. And I mean, I just wish nothing but the best for you in the meantime, in between this episode and next.
Same. Thank you so much.
Of course. But before you go, I do have one other question for you. Do you know the number that someone can call if they are either having a bad breakup, they are having suicidal ideations, they just got laid off from a job, or they just are having a bad mental health day? Do you know that number?
I do not.
It is 988.
Thank you. Learn something.
Yep.
I'm willing to learn. Yeah.
Yep.
That sounds like a great resource. I know that there are helplines, but that's an easy one. 988.
Yep, 988. And it's literally any kind of crisis, there's someone willing to answer the phone for you. So not you necessarily. I'm talking to the audience, to whoever is needing it at the moment. Don't be afraid to call. No shame in it. And it's free, so no worries there. But with that, Jessi, I appreciate you very much, and I can't wait to have you back on. And to everyone else out there, I love y'all very much. Y'all have a great day. And thank you for listening on WDJY 99.1 FM. This has been Keegan with Retrieving Sanity. Y'all have a good day. Shalom. And stop.